All right, the next sample we're going to do is an inward and outward curve. And for the sample that you've been given for class, I want you to take one corner of it and I want you to clip out a little notch. This is so that we can practice turning this corner, which was not allowed for in the cutting of the sample. So I'm going to be sewing a 5/8 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to be sewing the corner and then around this curve. And then I'm going to flip it right side out, and before I can do that, I'm going to have to do some trimming. So first I'm going to start with my back stitch, and I'm sewing a 5/8 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to sew forward. And then where the two 5/8 inch seam allowances intersect, I want to leave the needle down and raise the presser foot and turn it and sew forward. And where the two 5/8 inch seam allowances intersect, one more stitch. I'm going to sew along my curve. Smooth curve seams are one of the hardest things to sew. Wait till you get to your PJs. And I can end with the back stitch. Okay. So now I have this. I need to flip this so that it goes right side out. And when I try to do that, you can see that there's all kinds of mishmashy messes here. We need to do something with this seam allowance before we can turn this. So now many of your pattern instructions are going to tell you to clip your seams. I disagree. If you trim your seams, you will do just about the same thing as clipping. Clipping weakens the seam, and we don't want to weaken our seam. So I have trimmed this to about 1/4 inch. In the inward curve, I may need to put a clip or two, but I shouldn't need to put anything more than that. So now you can see that it is laying quite smooth. For your outward curve, because you trimmed it, you should not need to do any trimming along this part of the curve. So now here's my corner. That corner, I'm going to trim off my seam allowance to about the same amount that I did before. And if I could take a little camera inside of this once it gets turned, here at this corner, this seam allowance is going to be folding like this and folding like this. And we've got a whole bunch of junk sitting right here in this corner. So I'm going to get rid of it by clipping on the diagonal. And I have not clipped too close to the corner that I'm going to clip off. I'm going to put a hole in the garment. If I were to put the little camera inside of this, in this corner, this seam allowance wants to go this way, and this seam allowance wants to go this way, and this corner is keeping that from happening. So here, I'm going to clip to the corner. So now this seam allowance goes this way, and this one goes this way. And so now, here is a funky little shape. So now I'll just need to take it to the iron and press it. And we have inward-outward curves and corners.